Hello, my name is Jorge Toro and welcome to our Research Nexo webinar series focused on India, and we need more clinical trial sites in India. But today's focus, brought to you by Medinexo, is hiring a CRA, what you really need. Again, my name is Jorge Toro, I'm the President and CEO of Medinexo, and I welcome you to our webinar. Today, first of all, we're going to talk specifically about the subject of the CRAs, but we have to keep in mind all the time that we're talking about India-specific site challenges and the site setup issues, the trial execution issues, data issues that we might find, and specifically participation issues. In India, there are specific conditions for that, and we are fully aware of them, but we're going to focus today specifically on what does a CRA do? What are the key qualifications when you're hiring a CRA? What is today's CRA must know and must have? And what does it take to have excellence as a CRA? So let's just get started with that. What does a clinical research associate do? Clinical research associates typically manage the protocols. They actually help create them, they help document it, or they help adopt them, but they make sure that they actually enforce the execution and validity of the protocols. So trial protocols is a first for CRAs. Then there are communications with the steering committee, with the ethics committee, with the investigative team, with regulatory authorities, and more. Of course, there's communications with patients as well, but communications is a key center of the job of a CRA. The CRA also typically work as a trial site administrator. That means that they coordinate the execution of trials, and because they are familiar with the protocols, they also help enforce the protocol to its full execution. Training the staff that in the necessary tasks, making sure that the staff is trained in the necessary tasks, not necessarily providing the training in some cases, making sure that the training has happened and it's there. And managing intellectual property for the trial, that's important consideration, confidentiality on the trial, managing the information, managing the trial materials that are necessary. Keeping trial inventory is another common task for a CRA. Making sure that the supplies are there, making sure that everything that's needed for the trials to be executed happens. And then protecting the patients, the subjects' confidentiality on the trials, making sure that the information is anonymized when it needs to be anonymized, that there is a clear connection. So these are the typical duties of a CRA. Now, these duties might be split between multiple CRAs at the time. It depends on the size of the site, the number of trials that you're conducting, and the way you distribute your roles and responsibilities on a site or as an investigator. Now, what are the key qualifications a CRA should have? Well, first of all, typically you always require that there's a degree or a postgraduate qualification in life sciences, medical sciences, nursing. There has to be somebody who is familiar with healthcare. Has to be somebody who is a professional in an area of healthcare. So that's a qualification that is typically a requirement. Excellent communication skills. Communication skills are the first thing that you interview for a CRA. Can they communicate well with all the parties? Can they communicate verbally and in written language as well? Now, do they have the ability to build effective relationships? This doesn't have to mean necessarily that you have one type or another type of personality. It means that you have to have the ability to build effective relationships. Relationships that lead into results from the patient, results recorded by the investigators, results with the committees, and that the information flows correctly based on those effective relationships. Attention to detail is very important. I have heard many stories of CRAs who do not pay attention to detail enough, and then they miss details like the information that is being collected is not being collected properly, or that you are missing the standard of quality that is necessary to collect good data. So attention to detail is important. It never fails that you have a good CRA actually looking at the results that are being reported in the data to make sure that they can correct any quality issues. So attention to detail, very important. Presentation skills are also very important. The ability to show results, to display results, to put results in reports, to make sure that they actually can manage that. And related to that very much is the IT and administrative skills. Today's technology, information technology, is very important. The ability for a CRA to be able to manage tools like Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and all the communication tools is very important for you to be able to have good presentations and good reporting skills by the CRA. Now let's talk about specifically today's CRAs must know and must have. A CRA must have some knowledge of clinical research regulations, and your CRA must have clinical research regulation knowledge at the local level, at the level of reporting, at the level of compliance that you're working with. So clinical research regulations, knowledge of systems like the CTMS, the trial management files, the electronic data capture system, knowledge of the systems that are necessary for you to be able to execute in an automated manner the trial, and recorded in an automated manner. Computer skills, of course, they're necessary in today's world. You have to have very strong communication skills. And by the way, talking about computer skills, it's not just about having the skills, it's about having the tools. And this is not something for the CRA necessarily to have as much as for the site to have, but they must have the right tools. They must have the elements that are necessary for you to capture and track and invoice correctly the information. And for that, the CRA must be trained. So if the CRA is not trained on the tools, guess what you're going to have? A slow start, because the slow starts are related to starting to do the jobs of preparation during trials as opposed to before trials. So slow start could be a result. They must have the tools and the training for the tools. But now let's talk a little bit about excellence. And I try to not pretend to be an expert at everything. So I look online, of course, like many of you do, and I took note and I give credit to an excellent CRA who has a blog out there who you might want to take a look independently, Mark De Souza. I did take tips from his videos, and I want to give credit where credit is due. He points out very clearly that an excellent CRA must communicate effectively, must be very good at communications, must have a very strong attention to detail to be successful and to make sure that the trials are conducted successfully with enough quality, with the level of quality that is necessary for excellence. That CRA must have excellent organizational skills. So this is something when you're hiring a CRA, if you're aiming for excellence, this is a very important skill. And they must have clinical research knowledge. That's another important thing. Are you looking for the experience? Are you looking for someone who can actually speak the language of clinical trials, ethics committees, the preparation with the standards, the regulations at the local level as well, and of course the computer skills. You want somebody who's very handy with technology, because today's world, more and more technology is necessary, and specifically now when we're going so much into the centralized clinical trials. So thank you, Mark de Souza, for the tips. Here's what I consider, also I agree, is CRA excellence. So in summary, hiring a CRA, CRA must be skilled and experienced to manage, communicate, and report the trial. A CRA must know regulations, must know how to handle GDPR, CTMS, TMF, and all the systems that are necessary for all that. They must know that, and they must have the tools, and they must have the training. So if you want to take away from this webinar, take a picture of this screen, what they must be, what they must know, and they must have to when you're hiring a CRA. Now, to talk about that and learn more about what you can do, you should go to Research Nexo. Research Nexo empowers sites with the tools, the know-how, and the support to be ready for research and to be able to execute successful clinical trials. We provide all the tools for free to begin with. You're going to have all the tools for free. That includes the preparation for the CRA. If you like to have it, they can sign on and learn and be trained at Research Nexo. So welcome to our webinar. I greatly appreciate you joining us today, and if you have any questions, do not hesitate to contact us at researchnexo.com to chat with us or to send us questions, and we'd be glad to accept it. Please feel free to contact in Medinexo India also. Dr. Vibhuda is the director of Medinexo, and he would be glad to help you along with his staff. Thank you so much, and have a great rest of your day.